Yes. Can you switch off the broadcast after the class?
Reading from Srila Prabhupada Meeting, chapter entitled Please Distribute Books. Vrindavan, India, April 20, 1975. Srila Prabhupada installed the deities. Srila Prabhupada installed the deities for the grand opening of the Krishna Balaram Mandir. Almost 1,000 disciples were present, and the governor of Uttar Pradesh was the guest of honor. After years of hard endeavour, the grand opening was the climatic triumph for Srila Prabhupada and his movement. While still standing at the altar after having offered the first party to Krishna and Balaram, Prabhupada addressed the crowd, explaining that this was an international temple, where people from all over the world would come to worship and take shelter of Gaura Krishna, Balaram and Radha Krishna. Later that evening, Srila Prabhupada sat in his room with a few GBC men. The buttons on his kurta opened because of the heat, his legs and bare feet extended under the low table. He relaxed, and his men sat close around him in the dim light of the desk lamp. It was a milestone, he said, but still they had to go forward, not merely savour their success. Many things were still required to make the temple and guest house operative. Srila Prabhupada was thinking beyond Vrindavan. This temple construction is so important, he said, that I'm willing to spend many lakhs to open a temple like this. And yet, as important as it is, the book production is even more important. This was a significant reaffirmation of the priority of book production. Even while in the midst of this splendid temple opening, he was stressing that book production was more important. Srila Prabhupada seemed displeased, however, because for months his Chaitanya Charitamrita had been delayed by the Sanskrit editor. He said with a scowl that although he had finished the Chaitanya Charitamrita, it remained unpublished. He had almost completed all 4 volumes of the 4th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam and was beginning the 5th, yet only 1 volume of the 4th canto had been published. One of the devotees present, not understanding Prabhupada's point, remarked that since Prabhupada was going next to Hawaii, he would be able to write there in peace and quiet. Prabhupada replied that he was not encouraged to write when his manuscripts were not being published. The BBT Press, after several years in New York, was about to relocate in Los Angeles, where Rameshwar would become the new BBT Press supervisor. Rameshwar, unaware of the delay in publishing the Chaitanya Charitamrita manuscript, learned of it now in Vrindavan. He promised Prabhupada that he would immediately get the press set up in Los Angeles and begin producing Chaitanya Charitamrita. Srila Prabhupada. Disappearance. Today is the disappearance of Srila Vasudev Ghosh. This is about Vasudev Ghosh. Vasudev Ghosh and his 2 brothers, Madhava and Govinda, are eternal associates of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Sri Nityananda Prabhu. The brothers expertly performed sweet, melodious kirtan. Whenever they sang, Lord Chaitanya and Nityananda would immediately dance in ecstasy. Every year they came for Rath Yatra in Jagannath Priya. They led the chanting one of the 7 kirtan groups arranged by Lord Chaitanya. Vasudev Ghosh is Gunatanga Sakhi in Krishna Lila. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 5, Chapter 4, Text 1. Vrishabhavacha
Vrishabhavacha.
Nayam Deho Deha Bhajamna Loke
Nayam Deho Deha Bhajamna Loke.
Kashtan Kamanarati Vid Pujam Ye
Ashtam Kamana Vidvidhamye.
Tapo Divyam Putraka Yena Sattvam
Tapodhyam Putrayena Sattvam.
Shudhe Yasmad Brahma Sokyam Tavanantam Vrishabhavacha Nayam Deho Deha Bhajanna Loke Kashtan Kamanarati Vid Pujam Ye Tapo Divyam Putraka Yena Sattvam Shute Yasmad Brahma Sokyam Tavanantam Vrishabhavacha Nayam Deho Deha Bhajam Naluke Kashtan Kamanarati Vid Pujam Ye Tapo Divyam Putraka Yena Sattvam Shute Yasmad Brahma Sokyam Tavanantam Vrishabhavacha Nayam Deho Deha Bhajam Naluke Kashtan Kamanarati Vid Pujam Ye Tapo Divyam Putraka Yena Sattvam
Vrishabhavacha. Nayam Deho Deha Bhajamna Loke. Ashtan Kamanarati Vidpujamye. Tapo Divyam Putraka Yena Sattvam. Shudya Yasna Brahma Sokyam Anantam. Vrishabhavacha. Nayam Deho Deha Bhajamna Loke. Kashtan Kamanarati Vidpujamye. Tapo Divyam Putraka Yena Sattvam. Shudya Yasna Brahma Sokyam Anantam.
Ladies.
Vrishabhavacha Nayam Deho Deha Bhajam Niloke
Nayam Deho Deha Bhajam Naluke
Kashtan Kamanarati Vid Pujam Ye
Kashtan Kamanarati Vid Pujam Ye
Tapo Divyam Putraka Yena Sattvam
Tapo Divyam Putraka Yena Sattvam
Shudye Yasmad Brahma Sokyam Tavanantam
Vrishabhavacha
Vrishabhavacha
Nayam Deho Deha Bhajam Loke
Nayam Deho Deha Bhajam Naluke
Kashtan Kamanarati Vid Pujam
Kashtan Kamanarati Vid Pujam Ye
Tapo Divyam Putraka Yena Sattvam
Kashtan Putraka Yena Sattvam
Shudya Yasna Brahma Sokyam Tanantam
Shudya Yasmad Brahma Sokyam Tavanantam Vrishabha Uvacha Lord Rishabhadev said,
Lord Rishabhadev said,
"Now,
no,
not,
not,
I am
I am
this,
this,
Deha,
Deva,
body,
this body,
Deha Bhajam,
Deva Bhajam,
of all living entities who have accepted material bodies,
of all the entities who accept the material bodies,
Nirloke,
Nirloke,
in this world,
in this world,
Kastan,
Kashtan,
troublesome,
troublesome,
Kaman,
Kama,
sense gratification,
sense gratification,
Arate,
Arate,
deserves,
deserves,
Vit Pujam,
Vitpujam,
of stool eaters,
of stabilities,
Ye,
Ye,
which,
which,
Tapaha,
Tapa,
austerities and penances,
austerities and penances,
Divyam,
Divyam,
divine,
divine,
Putraka,
Vichika,
my dear sons,
my dear sons,
Yena,
Yena,
by which,
by which,
Sattvam,
Sattvam,
the heart,
Dharma,
Shuddhaya,
Shudya,
becomes purified,
becomes purified,
Yasmat,
Yasma,
from which,
from which,
Brahma Sokyam,
Brahmasukha,
spiritual happiness,
spiritual happiness,
two,
two,
certainly,
certainly,
Anantam,
Ananta,
unending.
unending.
Translation. Lord Rishabhadev told his sons, "My dear boys, of all the living entities who have accepted material bodies in this world, one who has been awarded this human form should not work hard day and night simply for sense gratification, which is available even for dogs and hogs that eat stool. One should engage in penance and austerity to attain the divine position of devotional service. By such activity, one's heart is purified, and when one attains this position, he attains eternal blissful life, which is transcendental to material happiness and which continues forever." Please repeat. Lord Rishabhadev told his sons,
Lord Vishnu's son,
"My dear boys,
My dear boys,
of all the living entities who
all
have
the entities
who've accepted material bodies in this world,
who accept
material bodies in this world,
one who has been awarded this human form
one who is awarded the human form
should not work hard day and night simply for sense gratification,
should not work hard day and night for sense gratification,
which is available even for dogs and hogs that eat stool.
which is available for dog and hog that eat stool.
One should engage in penance and austerity
One should engage in penance and austerity
to attain the divine position of devotional service.
to attain the divine position of devotional service.
By such activity,
by such activity,
one's heart is purified,
one's heart is purified,
and when one attains this position,
and when one attains this
he
position,
attains eternal blissful life,
he attains eternal blissful life,
which is transcendental to material happiness
which is transcendental to material happiness,
and which continues forever.
and which continues forever.
Prophet by Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. In this verse, Lord Rishabhadev tells his sons about the importance of human life. The word Dehabhak refers to anyone who accepts a material body. But the living entity who is awarded the human form must act differently from animals. Animals like dogs and hogs enjoy sense gratification by eating stool. After undergoing severe hardships all day, human beings are trying to enjoy themselves at night by eating, drinking, having sex, and sleeping. At the same time, they have to properly defend themselves. However, this is not human civilization. Human life means voluntarily practicing suffering for the advancement of spiritual life. There is, of course, suffering in the lives of animals and plants, which are suffering due to their past misdeeds. However, human beings should voluntarily accept suffering in the form of austerities and penances in order to attain the divine life. After attaining the divine life, one can enjoy happiness eternally. After all, every living entity is trying to enjoy happiness, but as long as one is encaged in the material body, he has to suffer different kinds of misery. A higher sense is present in the human form. We should act according to superior advice in order to attain eternal happiness and go back to Godhead. It is significant in this verse that the government and the natural guardian, the father, should educate subordinates and raise them to Krishna consciousness. Devoid of Krishna consciousness, every living being suffers in this cycle of birth and death perpetually. To relieve them from this bondage and enable them to become blissful and happy, Bhakti Yoga should be taught. A foolish civilization neglects to teach people how to rise to the platform of Bhakti Yoga. Without Krishna consciousness, a person is no better than a hog or dog. The instructions of Rishabhadev are very essential at the present moment. People are being educated and trained to work very hard for sense gratification, and there is no sublime aim in life. A man travels to earn his livelihood, leaving home early in the morning, catching a local train and being packed in a compartment. He has to stand for an hour or two in order to reach his place of business. Then again he takes a bus to get to the office. At the office he works hard from 9 to 5, then he takes 2 or 3 hours to return home. After eating, he has sex and goes to sleep. For all this hardship, his only happiness is a little sex. Vyanmai Kunadi Grihamedi Sukhami Tucham. Rishabhadev clearly states that human life is not meant for this kind of existence, which is enjoyed even by dogs and hogs. Indeed, dogs and hogs do not have to work so hard for sex. A human being should try to live in a different way and should not try to imitate dogs and hogs. The alternative is mentioned. Human life is meant for tapasya, austerity, and penance. By tapasya, one can get out of the material clutches. When one is situated in Krishna consciousness, devotional service, his happiness is guaranteed eternally. By taking to bhakti yoga, devotional service, one's existence is purified. The living entity is seeking happiness life after life, but he can make a solution to all his problems simply by practicing bhakti yoga. Then he immediately becomes eligible to return home back to Godhead. As confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita 4.9, Janma karma chametavyam evam yoviti tattvataha tyatva deham punar janma naiti mamiti so Arjuna. One who knows the transcendental nature of my appearance and activities does not, upon leaving the body, take his birth again in this material world, but attains my eternal abode, Arjuna. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare Rama 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 Hare. Lord Rishabhadev told his sons, my dear boys, of all the living entities who have accepted material bodies in this world, one who has been awarded this human form should not work hard day and night simply for sense gratification, which is available even for dogs and hogs that eat stool. One should engage in penance and austerity to attain the divine position of devotional service. By such activity, one's heart is purified. And when one attains this position, he attains eternal blissful life, which is transcendental to material happiness and which continues forever. So in this chapter, in the end of the last chapter, just to recap, that Lord Rishabhadev, he had reached a place called Brahmavarta, and there's a big assembly of Brahmanas, and Rishabhadev heard, and his 100 sons all went to this place, and they heard the instructions of the Brahmanas, and the Rishabhadev started to instruct his sons so that they could rule the world in a perfect way. So these are the instructions that Lord Rishabhadev is teaching his sons. And the chapter is entitled, actually, Lord Rishabhadev's teachings to his sons. So in this chapter, it's a description of bhakti yoga, the religious principles in devotional service. And here Rishabhadev is emphasizing the importance of the human form of life, and human beings, that they shouldn't work hard day and night like dogs and hogs for sense gratification, which is available even to the animals. And human life is especially meant for reviving our relationship with the Supreme Lord. And to achieve this, then we have to accept certain austerities and penances. And even in material life, people are performing so much austerity and to attain something, to achieve something in material life. Even people are, working hard, trying to get a good job, trying to make money, have a nice family, or for any sort of anything in material life. Even people have to undergo some sort of hardships to have something good in life. So to achieve some success in spiritual life, then surely we have to perform some austerities and penances to achieve the highest goal in life, which is to go back to Godhead. to attain pure love for Krishna. So the austerities are the 4 regulative principles, to not to refrain from eating unnecessary things like meat, fish, and eggs. We only eat things that are offered to Krishna. We refrain from taking any intoxication. We refrain from illicit sex life, and we refrain from gambling. So by these 4 regulative principles, it's actually not even a spiritual life, it's actually just becoming a human being. These are the principles to even become a civilized human being. And by rising early in the morning, attending Mangal Arati, Srila Prabhupada stressed this very much, that this is the beginning of the spiritual life, to rise early in the morning, to be clean, to chant the Hare Krishna mantra, to attend the Srimad Bhagavatam, the classes in Srimad Bhagavatam, and to serve the devotees, to perform devotional service. So all these are considered austerities and devotional service. But actually, it's not such a. It's actually a nice austerity. It's not like we're having to go to the mountain caves and practice yoga and meditation for thousands of years and not have any sort of anything to eat or drink, or we're actually the austerity we have is very nice. Lord Chaitanya is given as a process which is simply joyful. It's chanting, dancing, and feasting. So this austerity is necessary to attain devotional service, because unless our hearts are purified, like Prabhupada says, that the austerities is to cleanse the heart of material contaminations. And unless we perform these austerities, our hearts are not going to be cleansed of our anarthas. So this austerity is necessary for us. And hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, hearing the holy name, this is actually an austerity, because our mind doesn't want to focus on spiritual things, it wants to have sense gratification. So in order to control this mind, it's actually quite austere, although we're given such a simple process just by chanting Hare Krishna, just by hearing Bhagavatam. This is the process, but because our minds are so uncontrolled, it becomes an austerity to control the mind and to actually focus on chanting and hearing. But this is actually the real essence, is to hear and chant. This is the beginning process of devotional service. And this verse in the Srimad Bhagavatam, the first canto. Just find it. First canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, and it's in the first canto of the 3rd chapter. It's text. Sorry, first canto, chapter 2, text 10. It says, life's desire should never be directed towards sense gratification. One should desire only a healthy life or self-preservation. Since a human being is meant for inquiry about the absolute truth, nothing else should be the goal of one's work. So here again, Prabhupada is explaining in the purport that the ultimate in civilization, in this material world, in the civilization today, the ultimate end is sense gratification. But this is not the real aim of life. And here Prabhupada says, the Bhagavatam says that one should not live for sense gratification. One should satisfy the senses only in as much as required for self-preservation, not for sense gratification. Because the body is made of senses, which also require a certain amount of satisfaction, there are regulated directions for satisfaction of such senses, but the senses are not meant for unrestricted enjoyment. So it's not that we can't have any sense gratification, because if we perform only austerities, then our heart will become hard, and we can't perform devotional service properly with a hard heart. So our heart should become very soft, but the sense gratification should only be there in a restricted way to help. Srila Prabhupada said that sense gratification is like salt. Remember that? What did he say? I can't remember.
Makes it taste, gives it a bit of a taste, otherwise it's just not bland.
Yeah. So it's just to help give some little taste, but if you put too much salt in something, it's unpalatable. So it's just a little salt is necessary to help something become nice. So in the same way, sense gratification is only there to help us, so that our life is not so dry, but it has to be in a restricted way, not unrestricted. And Prabhupada gives the example of, as marriage or the combination of a man with a woman is necessary for progeny, but is not meant for sense enjoyment. So, there's, there is sense enjoyment, but it's in a regulated way, it's in a restricted way. It's not just unrestricted and whatever we fancy, whatever we feel like doing. And that's why Varnashram is so important, because Varnashram is there to help fulfill our material necessities and needs, and progress towards devotional service. And the ultimate aim of Varnashram is to help people become devotees, to attain Bhakti Yoga. So if we follow this process of devotional service, then renunciation is automatically there. What's that verse in the first canto? Vairagya, Bhakti Yoga Vairagya. Vasudevi Bhagavati. Is that how it starts? Maybe it's in another canto, but there is a verse in the Bhagavatam which explains that as soon as devotional service, we perform devotional service, then immediately there is knowledge and renunciation, or the other way around. Automatically we achieve knowledge and renunciation. So this is the process that by performing devotional service, we become renounced, we become free from the sense enjoyment, tendency for sense enjoyment, because we achieve a higher taste. And we can't really give up the lower taste unless we achieve a higher taste. So this is how we achieve a higher taste. Otherwise, we'll continue with the sense enjoyment. Just like children, unless if you want to give them something higher, you need to get them to give up the lower things. You have to give them something higher to play with, and then they'll automatically lose attraction for the lower plaything. So in the same way, for us to give up the lower taste, we have to receive a higher taste, and that's only through devotional service. And because people are not aware of the purpose of life, then they don't know how to actually go about attaining something higher, because they're in total ignorance. They don't even know that there is a soul, that they're not this body, that there's a higher purpose in life. So that's why people are just so absorbed in the bodily concept of life, and they just want to enjoy the body as much as they can. And because they have no knowledge of anything higher. So, and the educational system is just training people to become like animals. Because the whole purpose of the educational system is sense gratification, how to enjoy through different ways. And so people are not being trained in any way to help them achieve this higher end. So we can see the difference here. Rishabhadev, who's the king, he wants his sons to actually rule the world in a perfect way to help the citizens attain spiritual perfection. So he's being trained by Brahmanas himself, and he wants his sons to be trained in a similar way, accepting austerities to help purify themselves and to train others in doing the same. So everyone is looking for happiness, so this is a natural tendency of the living entities. It's trying to enjoy some happiness. It's always looking for some happiness and pleasure. It's the pleasure seeking, but it's looking in the wrong place. And because of that, it ends up suffering different miseries in life. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita that in the beginning it's like nectar, but at the end it becomes like poison. This is the process of sense gratification. But in the beginning it seems very nice and nectarian, but then at the end it's like poison, and we suffer many miseries because of it. But spiritual life, in the beginning it may be austere, it may be like poison, but at the end it's like nectar, because one achieves the highest possible purpose in life, one attains eternal life in the spiritual world. So there's a big difference in the dynamics. So Srila Prabhupada is saying that a foolish civilization neglects to teach people how to rise to the platform of Bhakti Yoga. Without Krishna consciousness, a person is no better than a hog or dog. And the instructions of Rishabhadev are very essential at the present moment. So this is very easy to see in the world today, that people are, the leaders are not interested in spiritual welfare activities. Are really only interested in some position, and they're not going to train anyone else up in anything higher either. So the blind lead the blind. So for human civilization to come to change, there needs to be good leaders who can train people up how to become free from this tendency for sense enjoyment, free from this materialistic way of life. And we can see in the Bhagavatam there's so many different great kings who are great examples of this, like Rishabhadev himself, who've accepted the spiritual way of life themselves, and they train their citizens in the same way. And here Srila Prabhupada is giving an example of how people are actually they're being educated for and they're trained very hard for sense gratification. So a man who travels to earn his livelihood, leaving home early in the morning, catches the local train, and then he has to stand for an hour or two in order to get a place in to reach his place of business. And then he has to take a bus to get to the office, and he works from 9 to 5, and then he takes 2 or 3 hours to return home, and then after sleeping and having sex, he goes to sleep. So this is it's like a rat race. They're just suffering the whole time. Everything is so dry. You know, they're going to work. They're spending so many hours in the day traveling to work, and what do they get for it all? They don't have time to enjoy themselves much at all. But they're working so hard for this. So practicing human life is meant for to pass the austerity and penance to get out of the material clutches. And so if we're going to perform austerities, then we might as well perform them for spiritual life than for material life, because at least the end, we're going to have some sort of a great result rather than some misery. So this will and also end all the problems, the solution to all the problems in life. He immediately becomes eligible to return home back to Godhead. So this is the real goal. The real goal is not to stay in the prison, but to actually get free from the prison. So whether we are in a first-class prison cell or a second-class prison cell or a third-class prison cell, it's still a prison. So this material world is like a prison. So the real goal is to get free from this prison-like cell, this material world, and go back to become free and go back to the spiritual world where we can eternally live in peace and happiness and eternal life. So any questions?
A question in the comment, please. When Prabhupada was mentioning that they have to stand up for an hour, so obviously the compartment that they're going into is so full, so there's no seat, so they have to stand. And I just saw recently in Japan, some people, their jobs, artists, squeeze people in. When they open the sluice gates and running off, they start pushing people and squeezing, and they're all like against that's what Prabhupada referred to. And the question was, in the early days, the way we preached to people was how the whole flow of the classes that you're going to have to perform austerities anyway. So why not just join? But now we see that most people that are in Krishna consciousness aren't in the temple, they're outside. So why perform austerities outside when they can perform the austerities inside?
Because people maybe not be able to perform like full-time bhakti, full-time devotional service, and they have jobs and they have family, so they can't just move and become like a monk. So that's why the tendency is now to help everyone have a temple in their own house, like let their house become a temple, and where they can actually do their perform their material necessities, but at the same time perform devotional service in some way, by hearing and chanting, by offering their food, by congregating together to discuss Srimad Bhagavatam, having sanghas. So it's not very natural for everyone to become like a monk, to live like a monk. And that's only a very small percentage of people in society would become like brahmacharis or sannyasis. So the majority are householders, and householders generally have their own house, their own facilities, and but their life is centered around devotional service. Like Prabhupada says, we should mold our life in such a way that Krishna is in the center. So whatever situation we're in, we may have a family, we may have a job, but we still have Krishna in the center of our life. We still chant, we still offer our food, we still perform bhakti yoga. in whatever way we can. And that way, that's what, Vedic civilization was like. It wasn't like everyone joined a temple. Vedic civilization, everyone had their own house, their own facility, but they practiced devotional service in their own means.
Just wondering, because you were saying it's simply joyful, this process. So, what's the austerity? We just feast and chant and dance around. So, would you prefer to that and get squeezed into a compartment?
Well, that's why there's different types of persons, as I was saying. That's why there's Varnashram, because not everyone has different needs. So it's not very practical to put everyone in one box and say that this is the only way. So Srila Prabhupada wanted the Varnashram so that people on different levels could actually practice devotional service in their own way, whatever they would feel comfortable in. And that would be so that their needs could be met.
So, why does too much austerity? If human life is meant for austerity, then why does too much austerity cause one to be hard-hearted?
Because I don't know, it's just Prabhupada says it's like it makes us proud. It's more like we become proud of our austerities. And
It must have really got self-control. You did too many austerities in this hard. It became very hard.
Generally, that is the tendency that if we perform too much austerity, then our hearts become hard. So, but our way of life back to yoga isn't such it's not like yogis performing austerity. It's we're singing and we're chanting and we're feasting. So it's not that kind of austerity. But has anybody else got any?
Yeah, just kind of shine a light on that also. Yeah, that's a good answer, thanks. Prabhupada, on many occasions you see him say that human life is meant for austerities. And then for those who are actually taken to devotion service, he doesn't require them to do any extra austerities. So, for example, he heard some comments that some devotees were doing some extra austerities, and Prabhupada says, well, why doesn't he put glass in his shoe? So he was pointing out it was unnecessary austerities, and it's just simply performed out of false pride to get some attention. And of course, Krishna explains that in Bhagavad Gita, austerity is in different modes. Austerity is performed out of no desire to get some kind of recognition. So it's often about the motivation. And then on another occasion, Prabhupada wanted to go and go down Parikram, but he was very sick. So this was he wanted to go do some preaching program, and he wasn't keeping such good health. And Hari Prabhu tried to argue with him, you shouldn't go, let someone else do the program. Prabhupada wanted to go, and so finally Hari Prabhu said to him that Prabhupada would be too austere, and Prabhupada said preaching means austerity. So he wasn't asking us to do anything austere just for the sake of being austere. We don't have to stand in a bucket of ice while we're chanting a japa. And we don't have to go around barefoot in the snow, things like that. That's just unnecessary austerities. But the austerities he was talking about is austerities we encounter in the course of doing our service. And preaching. Sometimes we're preaching and it's not austere at all, it's nectar. Feast is great, people are enjoying it. Other times you preach and it may be you've got to stand in the cold or the rain, or sometimes the austerities is there, sometimes it's not, but the duty goes on, isn't it?
Yeah, I was reading another place in Bhagavatam, and Prabhupada was saying, he says there is austerities in devotional service, like deity worship, there's austerities. We have to stay clean, we have to do so many things, rituals and this and that. And he said preaching is an austerity, there's so many things, you know, we have to put so much energy into trying to make devotees. So it's like these are austerities. And sometimes, as you say, they seem very joyfully performed, but sometimes it can be quite austere, especially if you're on Sankirtan and it's really cold and wet and you're trying to stop people. It can be austere. So, but this is all for our purification. If we see it as necessary for our purification, we won't see it as an austerity, we'll see it as something that we need to go through. That Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, what is austerity of the mind, body, and speech. Which chapter is that in?
Is that 17?
Division
17. I found the one that I proposed last was today.
Yeah, so austerity of the body consists in worship of the Supreme Lord, the Brahmanas, the spiritual master, and superiors like the father and mother, and in cleanliness, simplicity, celibacy, and non-violence. So these are considered austerities. We may not think that they're austerities, you know, to worship the Supreme Lord or to worship the Brahmanas and the spiritual master, but that's actually considered an austerity to Krishna, you know. So Krishna accepts that's an austerity. By staying clean, that's an austerity. Being simplicity, celibacy, and non-violence are austerities. We may not think that they're austerities, but that's considered an austerity.
I was thinking as well, Srila Prabhupada said, I'm sure you will by how to cooperate. So these are all cooperation skills, aren't they? If you're good at doing those things, you won't have any problem cooperating. And that's the real austerity, is being willing to cooperate.
And austerities of the speech, it consists in speaking words that are truthful, pleasing, beneficial, and not agitating to others, and also in regularly reciting Vedic literatures. So it's like to control the urge to speak, that's an austerity, isn't it? So if we're only speaking words that are truthful, pleasing, beneficial, and not agitating to others, that means that there shouldn't be any gossip, there shouldn't be any prajalpa, unnecessary talk, so that's an austerity, isn't it? So, and reciting Vedic literature is considered an austerity. And then satisfaction, simplicity, gravity, self-control, and purification of one's existence are the austerities of the mind. And Srila Prabhupada says to make the mind austere is to detach it from sense gratification. So again, this is what austerity is the purpose of all this is to detach yourself from sense gratification. And also, like, if we're performing austerities in the speech and the body, then it will help us to perform austerities of the mind, because if we're speaking the right things and we're doing the right things, then our mind will do the right things. But if we're not physically doing the right things, and mentally we're not going to be doing the right things either. So at least if we can speak the right things and we can do the right things, then eventually the mind's going to do the right, become controlled.
So it seems like it's only austere when we're not inclined to it in the beginning, but as we become more acclimatized to it, then it ceases to become an austerity.
Yeah. It becomes natural, actually, to speak truthful, to be truthful, to be clean, to be, it becomes like a normal way of life.
Before that, then it takes a lot of effort to actually be controlled within it.
I saw a photograph of myself becoming 40 and I went back to my parents' hometown, and I was really austere and walking around with that haircut and clothes I had on. I was thinking that was really austere at the time. And I was just used to that. That was me.
Yeah. So eventually that austerity will become like nectar, because it will become so natural for us, and to not be clean and not to be that will become an austerity. To not to be clean and not to follow this process will become an austerity.
And to activity going around is saying what we consider rules and regulations is the culture of the spiritual world. It's just natural, whereas we consider it something that we have to follow.
Yeah.
It's an austerity for, if it's what gets a taste of service, it's an austerity for them to not do any service. They don't have some engagement. You can end up with years of this sort of thing was Krishna not wanting any longer.
Yeah, because even like with chanting, it can be austere trying to focus the mind and control the mind when we're chanting. But if we were told, okay, today you're not allowed to chant, how would we feel? We would feel devastated because that's our like lifeline, you know. So without it, we would be like, that would be an austerity, you know. So actually, it'll come to the point where anything, anything that's not Krishna conscious will be an austerity.
There's an affirmation by Mahaprabhu who says, I get to chant, I want to chant, I want to chant. And it's to remind you that if you weren't allowed to chant, you're really sorry. So I'm trying to recognize and appreciate that you have an opportunity to chant.
Yeah, so all these activities we perform, they'll become eventually a natural way of life. And that's how the heart gets cleansed, because when it becomes more and more natural, that's how you know that the heart's becoming cleansed and purified. And we're actually developing the qualities of the soul. The soul's actually being uncovered, and its blissful nature is being seen.
So we can understand that if we're doing devotional service and we're not relishing it, then we're simply going through some purification. We just keep on doing it until it becomes relishable.
Yes.
We've seen that in the earlier on, that what is like nectar in the beginning, material life is like poison in the end, and vice versa.
Yeah. It reminds me of the Rupa Goswami saying it's like jaundice. When we have jaundice, then anything that we take, anything sweet things that we take, it tastes bitter. So like in the beginning, the chanting may be very difficult, getting up early may be very difficult for Mangalarti, and being clean may be difficult, so many different things. In the beginning, it's like jaundice, it's like very bitter. But by doing it, the cure for jaundice is to continue taking the sweet things, and then you get free from this jaundice condition. So in the same way, the only cure for our jaundice condition is to continue with devotional service until we get to the point of purification, and then it will become naturally sweet.
So it's a big responsibility if you've been practicing for a long time to make sure that it's sweet, because you can put somebody out if somebody's so long before it gets sweet, and you've been chewing it for 40 years, but this sometimes pretty sour, and you put somebody out.
Yeah, we need to have a lot of patience, because purification isn't going to just take overnight. It's going to take many years because of all our conditioning and our bad habits. So the nartas won't just go away just like that. They may take a while to get there, but eventually, as there will be a tipping point where things will become very sweet and nectarian and joyful, and we won't be encumbered or feel under the weight of all these anarthas and offences, because things go a bit sour or bitter when there's anarthas and there's offences involved. When we get free from this offensive mentality, and our offences become less and less, then the more we'll feel free and more blissful in our devotional service and our Krishna consciousness. So
it seems like a difference between material life and spiritual life is that material life, we avoid austerities, we enjoy as much as we can, and later on we're going to pay the price by suffering. And spiritual life means that we recognise that's what's going on in the material world, so we voluntarily enter into Krishna's service, which means we have to give up our own self-company and give up pursuing, just trying to avoid austerity and accept it, and then in due course of time, because it's for a higher purpose, then we get a taste for it.
Yeah, definitely. There's this going on in devotional service.
Shiva always was saying the tipping point is Srimad Bhagavatam Class, when you get to the point of
Yeah.
Nishta, that's when you're afraid you're enough, and then there's a tipping point when humility comes in, and that's when the taste of it.
Yeah.
So what would you suggest for for devotees who are undergoing the anatta stage, which is quite a long, sometimes painful stage it seems, so that the devotees can stay inspired to keep on going along the road and not think, oh, it's too difficult, let me just take it easier, let me just go and enjoy myself. So how do we stay inspired to last the race?
We have to be very sincere and serious. That's what purpose is. Very sincere and serious in devotional service. Because, we have to guard ourselves purposefully against committing offences. That's one of the major things, because that's going to destroy our creeper of devotion. So that's like one of the main things that we have to become wary of. And purposefully try not to commit the offences, recognise what they are, and purposefully try to avoid committing those offences. And so it means like controlling the urge to speak, controlling the urges of anger, all these things. We have to try to, make an effort to not criticise, not offend devotees especially, and performing our service in a proper mood, because it's actually advancement in Krishna consciousness is dependent on the attitude. So it's not just a mechanical thing that we're performing, it's actually the attitude we have, the mood we're doing it in, that's what's going to attract the Lord. So that's what we have to be like conscious of. Yeah.
Sorry, you stopped.
No.
Yeah, I just want to say that these are good guidelines to keep us safe and to avoid pitfalls and things. And I guess the thing is just to always remember what the goal is. Which is we want to enter into the eternal pastimes of Krishna, the eternal service of Krishna.
Yeah. Yeah, if we have the goal in mind the whole time, then no matter what happens to us on the way, we're still going to continue, because our goal is we're going back to Godhead. So no matter what comes in our way, we're determined. We have to have determination, and we have to have enthusiasm. Otherwise, we're just going to fall away. Any distraction will come and deviate us from the goal. Just like if you're going to catch a plane, right? And we get distracted in the duty free, and we lose track of the time, we forget where we're going, and we just get caught up, and then we lose our flight. We miss our flight. So that's what ends up happening. We have to be fixed on the goal, and that's actually going. And we have to have the desire that this is my goal, and I'm prepared to go through whatever is needed to get there. And it may the ups and downs, whatever it is, we have to have that determination. It's through thick and thin, that's where I'm going. We have to have that determination, otherwise we won't make it. No.
How do we know if we're becoming hard-hearted, or if we're doing austerity, artificially or naturally?
Do you have a light to your own question? How would you feel if you're becoming hard-hearted? It means we don't have compassion. We have less compassion for others. That's the sign of being hard-hearted. What was it? Anything you could think of like that?
Yeah, I don't know. I was also thinking, because some people, they can still have compassion for other people, but for themselves, inflicting these austerities, maybe they don't have compassion for themselves.
also heard if you're angry with someone, be self-expressive, not self-righteous. So you can be, that was the person in these problems was very indignant. He said, I'm just going to kill Ambrish. Gosh, it was very tiny, wasn't even really a fault, So, because he was so hard-hearted, he was more focused on being self-righteous rather than just, saying what the partner was.
Generally, hard-heartedness is, I would say, that self-centeredness, because we're only thinking about ourselves rather than thinking of others. I can't think of any.
There's a list of qualities of hard-hearted people in the divine and demonic natures. When the Krishna explains things like arrogance, pride, conceit, harshness, these are the symptoms of hard-heartedness. And we may still be carrying some of these things, or we may even develop them as we do some austerities, because perhaps we did nothing worthwhile before we came to Krishna consciousness, then we start to do something, we start to become proud, some smokers or something, and we never even heard of Sanskrit a couple of years before. So we become childishly proud. But keeping in association with devotees, and usually it means that someone will help you with that.
Yeah, so, the demonic qualities are hard-hearted qualities, you're right, like pride, harshness, ignorance, conceit, arrogance, and
It talks about soft-heartedness in the devotion of the crowd, where usually the person that's soft-heartedness heart is like compared to cotton.
yeah, I mean, there can be soft-heartedness and the sentimentalism as well, so I don't know the difference.
If we're worried about whether we're doing too much austerity, then the main thing is prescribed duty. And as you were saying earlier on, is the motivation we're doing it. We're doing it to get some attention, and that's when we develop hard-heartedness, because we want some recognition, we become proud, and then if we don't get it, we get upset, or if we do get it, we just inflate our ego. And then, so if we're doing prescribed duty, we're trying to do it with devotion. And what the Holy Spirit was saying earlier on is this the tipping point is Jagannath Priya. So if we meditate on that verse, it's not something we just rattle off once a day, okay, that's that part done for the day, don't worry about that until tomorrow morning is like same time, and it's Jagannath Priya time for 5 seconds. But actually, the whole day is meant to be looking for the opportunities to live that verse. And then this also helps with our japa, that helps with our relationships, and it takes care of pride as well, because you can't be proud and humble at the same time. Some people may become proud of how humble they are.
Yeah,
That's the device of the humble, the humility.
that's the the main thing is that we have to be more conscious that we're not hurting anyone or committing any offences, because that will hamper our devotional service. So if we're conscious of that, then we're less likely to commit them, because we'll be aware of them.
And if we do, because we don't join as pure devotees, so it's quite possible we make some transgressions. So then what do you do then if you feel like you may have been harsh to someone or offended somebody?
Then we have to be humble enough to ask for forgiveness. We have to learn to forgive and ask for forgiveness. These are the 2 things we have to be able to do, because otherwise we're never going to really go forward. We'll just get stuck or go back down. So in order to go forward, we have to forgive others, forgive ourselves, and ask for forgiveness from others as well, so that we can get free from this. That's the only way we can get free from offences to Vaishnavas, because, by asking for forgiveness. And in that way, because then otherwise we'll be just stuck and we can't go forward, because we'll always think it's somebody else's fault. We won't be able to change.
So then, I guess that's where the 6 loving use changes come in. If you think that you've been harsh to somebody or offended them, then you can go and offer some man.
Yeah, there's so many nice ways we can do that. We can offer some gifts. If we're performing these loving exchanges, then there's less likely a chance that we're going to be committing any offences. You know, if we're following Rupa Goswami's instructions, offering gifts in charity, accepting gifts, offering prasadam, receiving prasadam, and appreciating. So if we appreciate and we're grateful for the association of devotees, we won't commit offences.
Also, one of the things that causes offences is blaming other people for how you feel, rather than just taking responsibility yourself. So it's nobody else's fault, even if they do something which is wrong. It's up to you how you feel about that, isn't it?
If we I heard something about Nath Maharaj was saying that if we're very deep in our Krishna consciousness, then all these external things that happen, that material ups and downs, they won't affect us so much, because we'll be so deep in our Krishna consciousness that it won't affect us. So it only affects us when we're not so deep, we're kind of shallow in our Krishna consciousness. So we have to go deeper in our Krishna consciousness, that no matter what happens, it doesn't affect us in our devotional service. It doesn't. So I think better stop. Okay, thank you for the discussion. Granthrash Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai, Shri Prabhupada Ki Jai, Shri Shri Ki
Jai. Hey, that's quite a lot. I didn't believe it's so good.
Is this part of this thing? This cable here, is this part of this?